Amir Abbas here with 21 Alive News Now. 21 Alive News Now bringing you our third live update of the day. It is a busy Wednesday here at 21 Alive News Now. We are coming to you live from our digital desk, live in Fort Wayne on a Wednesday afternoon, 2:30 p.m. And we are here to talk about the Three Rivers Ambulance Authority. We brought a story to you last night on the Three Rivers Ambulance Authority and some of their funding needs, the money that they need, and we're going to be having another story, another update today. And to help us explain this, I have our very own Carly Van Cleve who is here. Let me make sure this works. And of course, it is not working. Give me just 1 second, folks. We are on live TV right now. And let's see, there we have that, there we have that. And let me get my background over here. Don't you just love technology, folks? Don't you love how it is? Hey, there it goes. There's
here.
Carly. There she is. You know, Carly, we've had to reboot the computer a couple times, but you know, here in live TV and local news, we roll with the punches, don't we, Carly?
We figure it out. We
Yes,
certainly do.
we absolutely figure it out. So Carly, we are talking about the Three Rivers Ambulance Authority, and we are talking about some of the funding and the money that they need. I'm going to be playing some video from some of the stories we've done. I know you've done some ride-alongs with them. Before we get to the actual issue that's going on right now, take us back a little bit. Give us a step back. Tell us a little bit about the history of the Three Rivers Ambulance Authority, the areas that it covers, and then also some of the issues they've had in the past that they're working through.
Yeah, Amr, I've been covering this for about 2 years now. Back then was when they were really at a desperate need for paramedics. Their response times were low. They weren't able to make it to a lot of calls on time, and they've had to get some help from our county ambulance providers, other areas. All sorts of people have had to step in and help TRAW for the past 2 years. Around that same time that I started covering this, their executive director at the time, Gary Boer, stepped down, and executive director now, Joel Benz, took over. Around that time, things have slowly started to improve. I have been giving frequent updates on their response times because obviously this is a very important, dire problem in our community. These are the people, when you call 911, they show up. These are the people that come to your home when you are in need, when you have a family member, a loved one who is hurting. They're the people who take you to the hospital. We need that to happen in a prompt fashion. At that time, I was investigating this story and got some data. Their longest response time that I found was up to 20 minutes. So a lot of times the fire department was getting there 20 minutes before an ambulance just to have a paramedic there to help give emergency medical services. So since then, around now, the past couple months, things are finally starting to level out. Their staffing problems are still pretty rough, but they have gotten enough EMTs and paramedics in that they are stabilized now. So their compliance rate is at about 70% is where they need to be. They've finally reached about 85% compliance. And that means that they're making it to emergency calls within 8.5 minutes. Finally, they're over that compliance time, and it is slowly getting higher. So now the problem is they need money to keep paying their paramedics. So the only reason people have stuck around for this long through these 2 years is because Executive Director Joel Benz decided to give a significant pay boost to all of these paramedics and EMTs, and they depleted all of their funds in this time period. So he knew this was going to happen. They knew they were operating at a deficit, and once they ran out of those funds, Benz had to go to the city and the county and ask for help for them to continue to be in operation. So that's where we're at today.
You are watching 21 Alive News Now. I'm Abbas here with our very own Carly Van Cleve, and we are talking about the Three Rivers Ambulance Authority. If you do have a question, if you do have a comment, as you can tell, Carly knows a lot about this issue. She has been covering it for a long time now. Right, you could see in the video, we saw Carly multiple times there because of how much she has covered this issue. So if you have a question for Carly, if you have a comment about Three Rivers Ambulance Authority, we are taking your questions. We are taking your comments. We are streaming live right now on the app, on our website, and also on Facebook as well. Want to say hello to one of our viewers, Sarah Shadow Jones. Good Wednesday afternoon to you, Sarah. Carly, I know that we have a couple interview clips that we do want to get to, but before I get to that, I want to talk about just the importance of this and sort of the areas they cover. You already mentioned this a little bit, but Three Rivers Ambulance Authority really provides responses for Fort Wayne area of the county. But in addition to that, they also will help out some other smaller townships as well too, Carly?
Yeah, so I just got some new numbers today. Roughly, their overall TRAW serves about 270,000 people total,
Wow.
and about 30,000 of those people are outside of our city limits. So last night at council, I believe it was one of the board members talked about how, even if there's their last ambulance and they're getting a 911 call outside of Fort Wayne, they will send their last ambulance to that call if it is a priority one call, even if it's further outside of our city, even if they have their own ambulance provider in those areas. And that's because TRAW does cover our whole county, not just Fort Wayne. So they definitely step up in areas that are needed to, even when they're short-staffed, as much as they try to and are capable of doing.
Very good. Well, I do want to get to a couple of our interview clips. And Carly, one of the great things here is we could just call audibles here on the fly. I know we have Joel Benz. We also have Mike Manns. Where would you like to start? Because I would like to have our viewers hear from both of them. So I guess tell me who you want me to play first. And then before we get to it, sort of set up what we're going to hear in the clip.
Yeah, so Mike Manns, about a little over a year ago, as TRAW started to stabilize, I requested a ride along, and I was able to go along with Mike Manns. He is the head of operations for all of our paramedics in our city, so he's the one that kind of is the manager of everyone. I got to ride next to him in an ambulance for a day. We went to a few 911 calls. I got to, see how it really works on the streets. And he was at council last night when council was talking about TRAW, and I was able to reconnect with him and see how things are doing since we last talked. So that's what our conversation is here. Him as a paramedic, how he feels the situation is himself. So
Okay, let's go to Mike Manns now and listen to him. This just coming from Mr. Manns last night. Let's take a listen.
tell us how things are going since we last talked a couple years ago.
Well, things have improved a lot. We have more staffing. We're improving our response times. We're relying less on the county to come in. We still work very closely with them, and they're still very valuable to us. I'm not discounting what they do and have done for us, but we are able to make response times better and make more runs on our own. So that's a really big improvement. Our employee numbers have improved. We have more employees, and so that's a really good changes.
And why did you guys all come to council tonight? Did you want to come, to hear this presentation? What is, the future of this? How is it going to affect you?
So I came personally, I can't speak for everyone else, but because I wanted to support this, I wanted them to know that this was important to us and that had important to the community, that they support us. And we saw really good support tonight, so I'm really pleased. It's really encouraging that council is supporting us, so very good.
And in the future, as this progresses, as more funding is given out, is there anything else, any other changes that you as a paramedic, you would want from this?
Well, the changes that I really would like to see is that we'd get better reimbursement from what should be our primary funding sources, which is insurance companies, Medicare, Medicaid, the private insurance. That's really where it is, but because that funding is not adequate, then it does fall back on the community to support us.
Sort of interesting there, Carly. Obviously, at first, he was very much talking about how, things are getting better. We appreciate the support. But then towards the end, he did get a little bit specific, saying that he was hoping that insurance companies and Medicare would come and chip in. But we know that, a lot of that hasn't happened yet. So now they're relying on the city. They're relying on the county. Tell us now a little bit, Carly, as we get more specific into here, what actions did the city take last night, and then what are we possibly expecting from the county?
So yeah, perfect segue there, Amir. He's the reason that they don't have these funds is because of their wages being increased and because they're not able to be self-sustainable with those Medicare reimbursements that they get. So last night, back in February, Joel Benz sent out a letter to City Council and to our county commissioners requesting about $3 million in a financial shortfall that they need. Last night, after much discussion, council granted them that $3 million, but it's not all coming at once. So an amendment was introduced where they only are giving them $1 million right now. And once they go through that funding, they're going to have to check in with the county. They need to see if the county is going to help step in because, remind you, the county TRA does serve our county as well, not just our city. So that was one of the requirements of this amendment. So they want to see and put a little bit more pressure on county commissioners to come in and help. And then if that doesn't happen, City Council said they will give them that second million. They just want to make sure that they're checking in with other sources of money. And then once they get through that second million, when they need that third, they are going to be required to sit before council again and prove that they used the previous funds efficiently and that they are still heading in the right direction. So a lot of this all happened because Councilman Russ Yale, I talked with him yesterday, he wanted to make sure there were specific areas where TRA can be held accountable. They didn't want to just give them taxpayer dollars, give them money and let them go free with this. They wanted to make sure that there were specific checkpoints that they have to meet in order to keep these funds and continue in operation. So definitely, and then after the meeting, I got a chance to talk with Joel Benz, which is, what leads us into our next sound that we have.
Absolutely. Sound, very fancy word there, Carly, for an interview clip. I do want to remind you that you are watching 21 Alive News Now. Amir Abbas here with our very own Carly Van Cleve, coming to you live from Fort Wayne, 2:42 in the afternoon on a Wednesday. We are talking about the Three Rivers Ambulance Authority and the money they need, the financial needs that they need. Such an important organization here, especially during an emergency. We know how important those emergency response times are, and they really are one of the biggest organizations to help during emergency times in Northeast Indiana, serving Fort Wayne, Allen County area, and as Carly said, even some smaller townships. If you do have a question, if you do have a comment for Carly, she is really an expert on this. She's been covering it for so long. She covered the city's decisions last night. She's going to be covering some possible actions the county is going to take because, again, Three Rivers Ambulance Authority does need help and support to keep providing help. And Carly, that brings us now to Joel Benz. I'm about to play the clip from the Joel Benz interview. And right before I do, just set this up for us again one more time before I play this.
Yeah, so one of the major things that council wanted to make sure was, where's the county in all of this? So I reached out to them yesterday and I got a statement that I was able to read live on our air last night as it came into my email. I didn't get a yes or no answer whether they are going to help with funds or not, but they did say, they are going to be working and having these conversations because our emergency services are very important to them. And these are questions that council members were asking Joel Benz. Where's the county? Have you heard from the county? So after the meeting, I went and asked him those questions myself, and you can kind of hear our back and forth throughout this, and he explains what kind of conversations he's been having with them about those possible areas for funding.
Very good. Let's listen now to Joel Benz.
Huge step. We've taken so many steps since I took over a year and a half ago. Just one major change to TRA after another, and so this is, you sort of see the light at the end of the tunnel a little bit with this one. So that's really exciting because, we needed this funding in order to continue to operate. Without it, we would have had to have made some really tough decisions on how we were going to move forward. And so this gives us the opportunity not to cut back services, not to have somebody not there when you call 911, and to really make sure that, our folks are on the streets and ambulances are rolling when we get those calls. And so it's so appreciated.
So where is the county in all of this? What kind of communication have you guys received?
They have 4 appointments to our board, and actually I had a meeting. I sat down with them about 2 weeks ago with 2 of the commissioners and the mayor, and just kind of talked about some of this request for funding. And then also since then, their board appointments have come back and had some further discussion. So I think they're still working through what they feel like they should be involved with. And I would talk to them about the specifics of where they're at.
And you said, I think in the meeting, you guys respond to 15 to 30,000 people outside of our city limits. Was that correct?
That's correct, yeah. So there are several unincorporated county or townships, that we are the primary responders to. We're the only coverage that they really have. They don't have their own ambulance or fire department in that part of the county. There are other areas where we are the paramedic service, and so we provide that higher level of care in those areas. And that's about 30,000 combined people.
And do you feel like, I feel like that was something council was kind of pressing you about, just wanting them to step up as well, the same way council has tonight. Do you expect that to happen at all?
I'm not going to put words in their mouths. I think that everyone sees the need here for there to be emergency services. I think everybody understands, city and county, that is a fundamental part of what they do. How they choose to be involved. That's not my decision. I would like to see the county be involved. I would like to see the city be involved. I think that there's some parity there that needs to take place, but ultimately that's not my decision, and so that's for them to kind of figure out.
Great question there, Carly. That obviously is an important question you asked, and clearly what people are wondering. I mean, what sort of do they expect actions-wise and decisions that are going to come down, because that's really what affects all of this so much.
Yeah, and I yesterday requested an on-camera interview with one of the commissioners. They told me no and sent me that statement. And then after last night happened, I reached out again this morning and I said, or late last night, I reached out and I said, hey, I'm planning on covering this and drilling a little bit in more to what is the county doing. Would anyone be willing to do an on-camera interview with me? And I got a response and they said, no, not at this time. They said they would rather keep their conversations between TRAW and City Council at this time and not get involved with the media right now. I do plan on going to the commissioners meeting on Friday at 10 o'clock. That way I can, try to get one of them in person to ask these questions to see, do they care about the future of this and want to understand a little bit more about their plans and getting involved in our emergency services moving forward.
Yeah, very interesting. And you are watching 21 Alive News now. Amir, Abbas here with Carly Van Cleve. We are talking about the Three Rivers Ambulance Authority and the money that they do need. Carly covering the decisions by the city of Fort Wayne last night. Tonight she's going to be covering what the county possibly is going to do. She had a story last night. You're going to have a story again tonight in the 6 and 7 p.m. Is that correct, Carly?
Yes, that is correct.
And you can send us your comments. You can send us your questions. We actually are getting a couple comments and questions in right now. Carly, I want to go to our viewer, Cheryl Kensel. Cheryl saying, hey, Carly, do we know what is their outstanding? How much is owed to them? Are they successfully collecting their funds from insurance and customers? I know that was a problem at one time.
As far as I know, yes, they are. I know that it kind of is a little bit beyond my scope of knowledge in that aspect. It is definitely very complicated, the relationship between the two, and I know Joel Benz has been working on finding new ways to go through that. We talked a little bit about it in the past, but truly I don't know how that works as well as I do when it comes to involving our city and county governments. But I know that they are working on raising those reimbursement levels, but it kind of comes down to state laws and not necessarily our local involvement in that aspect.
I mean, what we do know is that, our viewer Cheryl, she's pointing out just some of the issues they've had in the past. And I mean, we started this off, Carly, with you saying that, look, this is an important organization and they do help a lot of people, but, there have been problems, there have been issues. You saying one time, they had, I think, wait times as long as 20 minutes. And obviously the funding issues, this is nothing new. So there have been some issues there,
Absolutely. And from what I can see, we're not going to stop, following them and making sure that, these issues do come to find solutions and that we can, find a way to move forward with this. And I know a lot of council members are also feeling the same way. I check in with TRA probably once a month, attend their meetings as often as I can, just so that they know people are watching. People care that their emergency services are adequate and up to par. And from what I've seen, they are very responsive with me now. In the past, I haven't experienced that, but Joel Benz is always very responsive with me and willing to help get information out to the public as much as needed. So, if anyone else listening to has stories that could, show what's really happening too, I know a lot of people probably have been affected by these slow response times in the past. I would love to share those stories as well, if there is any chance of that.
That's really a great recommendation. And Carly, if people do have concerns or questions about the Three Rivers Ambulance Authority, how can they send you their experiences, their comments, or their story ideas?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and my email address is kvancleave@wpta21.com. And then an even easier way, if you go onto our website, 21alivenews.com, we have, you could submit a story tip to our 21 Investigates team, and then we can, really get your contact information, your email address, and you can write out your story tip to us there, and we can contact you directly. That is the easiest way for us.
Very good. Carly, as we begin to wind down, one other thing I did want to bring up, and I do want to remind our viewers, you are watching 21 Alive News now. Amir Abbas here with our very own Carly Van Cleve. Busy day here at 21 Alive News now. This is our third live update of the day, coming to you a little bit before 3 p.m. live from Fort Wayne from our digital desk. Carly, one of the issues that Three Rivers Ambulance Authority has had, other organizations have had, is staffing. And really just finding people. Really, I mean, we've seen that in so many industries, but just last week I was doing a story on 911 workers in the state of Indiana and how low some of the staffing levels are and how that has affected some response times. I know the mayor of Beech Grove, Indiana, which is just a little southeast of Indianapolis, he was saying that a couple of weekends ago there were more than a dozen callers who were on hold with 911, according to the mayor, more than 18 minutes. So obviously that's some very troubling things. And one of the things that lawmakers are changing is employment requirements, more specifically residency requirements. So, for example, there's some counties where to work as an emergency worker, you also have to live in that county. When it comes to the Three Rivers Ambulance Authority and some of their staffing issues, talk to me a little bit about that, Carly. I mean, maybe not necessarily what you're hearing immediately about it, because I know right now you're covering when it comes to funding, but you have been covering them for a long time. I imagine they also have had issues when it comes to staffing.
Yes, they have. That is the core of really this problem, Right now, I believe last night they said they have 14 paramedics full-time and they need upwards of 40. So there is less than half the number of paramedics that we need in our city, but there was less than that. So they are finally now leveling out and not having to mandatory time them. And it's because they've been able to hire on more EMTs. So an EMT is what you learn to be before you become a paramedic. So sometimes their ambulance are sent out and they only have EMTs on them and not a paramedic. And that's because of the short staffed. An EMT can do a lot of the things a paramedic can, but not nearly as many life-saving measures. But the reason that they have so many EMTs now is because they have a opportunity for people to earn while they learn. So there's this program that was launched just last year. You can learn to be an EMT while you're still making the same amount of money that you would be making once you are on the streets. So for them, the problem has been, just getting people to be interested in this career and people with a passion to stick around, because this is obviously not an easy job. You have to have a love for it. You have to care enough to go out and do this every day. So I think that they are looking for those people, and they will teach you how to do it while you can get paid to do it as well.
You are watching 21 Alive News Now. Amir Abbas here with Carly Van Cleve. We are just winding down our coverage here, our third live update of the day about the Three Rivers Ambulance Authority. You can share your comments. You can share your questions. One of our viewers, Rebecca Snyder, writing in now, Carly, saying, I don't get it. This company should be right at the fire stations. This should not be a separate company anymore. The city is getting too big. Mayor won't put them on the city payroll, though. So obviously, Carly, I think the gist here is that, people have strong opinions, when it comes to this. They know how important, the ambulance authority is.
Yeah, so throughout my 2 years, I've been able to understand how this, it's kind of like a quasi-government organization. They aren't necessarily associated with the city or the county or their own. They're associated with all three at the same time. It's very complicated. It's taken me a while to understand the structure of it all, which is why their funding is so complicated, because they're not necessarily grouped in with the fire department. That is an option that has been discussed, but our chief has not, been interested in pursuing that. He hasn't exactly said a reason why, but he doesn't feel like there's a need right now, but it is a possibility if it ever gets to that point. But because TRAW on their own has been improving, I don't think that they've had to cross that bridge right now. And especially our fire departments in the area have been already helping out with the brunt of the work that TRAW needs, because every fire truck has a paramedic on it. So if you see a fire truck at certain scenes, it's probably because they're giving emergency attention to people. So it's very complicated, and I'm still learning myself how it all works and how it works with our city funding. It makes it even more complicated as well.
And speaking of that funding, TRAW looking for $3 million, city agreeing to do, I believe you were saying, separate payments of $1 million each, and then hoping for the county to chime in. I will give you the last word here, Carly, as we sign off. Anything else that you think is important to mention? Anything else we missed? And then obviously, how can we see your stories?
Yeah, I don't think so. I will be checking in. TRAW has a meeting about every month, so I usually attend those meetings and at least give an update on their response times and their staffing levels, just because this is something that I want to always pay attention to. It's very important to people in our community, so pay attention for those updates. You can find all of our coverage on 21alivenews.com under the 21 Investigates tab, and then I also share everything on our Facebook, Twitter, and sometimes our Instagram as well. So, and then tonight I will have a full update at 6 and 7 from what I've learned about the county and the latest numbers that I've received from TRAW Executive Director Joel Benz.
Carly, thank you for your time. You have been watching 21 Alive News Now. For Carly Van Cleve, I'm Amir Abbas. We'll see you later.